It's 2024. People are fighting for jobs, LLMs are on the rise, and CEOs are saying kids should not learn how to code. Let's talk about no-code side effects. I used to work for a few companies that are exclusively developing software by using no-code frameworks. And I can tell you the rabbit hole is much deeper than it seems. There are plenty of reasons why no-code looks so appealing to the upper management, CEOs and investors. And the main motivation is of course money. Hiring, training and keeping good software engineers can be very expensive. And keeping the best players in your team is especially hard if the competition is coming with Lambos and you can only offer a fruit bowl every Tuesday. I mean, having a nice working environment is great, but the reality is at some point you need to get your bills paid. Now, as a disclaimer before everyone loses their mind, I'm not an advocate for no code. In my humble opinion, we need better trained engineers and not something that allows you to turn your brain off and drag and drop a bunch of shit. I mean, let me know your opinion on this no-code communism, and if you like the content, hit subscribe, and now let me cook. Since the beginning of software engineering, people were trying to make rock stars from average developers, and the silver lining is, if we just get better tools, then we can make bad engineers produce good code instead of bad code. The goal was never to make the engineer any better. There is this trend in development tools to prevent you from doing anything stupid, but in doing so, they also prevent creative thinking. And you have other reasons like reducing time to market, generating production level code that follows certain standards, and so on. You have to understand that creating these new layers of abstraction that make you more productive is not bad. As a matter of fact, people used to write machine code and now we write in C, and I think that's an improvement. I mean, the code that's being executed is the same, but it's easier to develop software in C than with machine code, and we can all agree on this. So, this whole no-code thing is a superset that takes this trend of adding new layers of abstraction to the extreme, to make software development available to more people. The aim is to cut down the training time for software developers. And as a side effect, if more people can do the job in the same quality, it becomes cheaper, because basic principles of supply and demand, right? And this leads us to my first point. No code will not reduce the cost. The no-code tools will not be free. If something reduces the cost of development by let's say 5%, do you really think they will give it away for free? It will also not be a thing where you buy it once and have it forever. It will be some kind of subscription thing with a license where you can use it only for one project. So some mix of subscription plus project-based. And now hear me out. This shift will gradually take money away from developer salaries budget and put it toward the licensing budget for these tools. Let that sink in. And of course, I see why some people would like to make this become reality. Imagine a company that sells a no-code framework that is used by the whole industry. Once you make them dependent, it's basically over. After a few years, students will skip conventional programming languages and start by learning how to use this no-code framework. And once that happens, it's very hard to go back. This already happened in some industries, so it's not a what-if question. Let's get back to the topic though. What can be even more expensive is letting inexperienced people with minimal training operate tools that produce something they don't understand. Let's talk about the knowledge gap. Using APIs that you don't understand is like using a TV remote. Learning how to use a TV remote doesn't mean you will know how to fix the TV when it stops working. And sometimes you need to fix the TV and not switch channels. Now, using no code is even worse than using APIs. You can use no code to create something without ever understanding what is actually happening in the code. And I witnessed myself how people who use no code for their entire career have no idea what is actually happening outside the framework. Stay with me now. Let's talk about low-level stuff. Anyone working in C knows that there's a difference when you compile it with different levels of optimization. And anyone compiling knows there's a difference which compiler you're using. Specific industries require you to work following specific standards. And some of these standards require you to disable specific features of a language. So for specific industries, you even have specific compilers. And all of this is information that someone who never worked outside of the no-code domain has no no idea about. And that's a huge problem. You can't tell them to go debug the code on a lower level of abstraction because they just don't have this fundamental knowledge of software engineering and computer science. You can't expect someone who's working with these drag and drop frameworks to go and analyze some, assembly code. As long as the framework works, they are fine, but the first time something is not going according to the plan, they are done. And if you don't understand what's happening under the hood, then you can't adapt to the problem. And that leads us to my next point: limited by design. Imagine you have a color palette with 5 colors, but you can't mix the colors to create new shades. As long as you're painting in the range of these 5 colors, you're fine. But the moment when you need a specific shade, you're just not able to do it. These drag and drop frameworks remind me of that. And I know this is overly simplified, of course. We can definitely argue about a lot of things and opinions, but in the nature of system design and architecture is that good architecture has to be tailored to the problem and not an off-the-shelf solution. And if you can't tailor it properly, then you will produce something that's not optimal for the solution. Anyone working in embedded development knows that sometimes you have this whole overhead of bloatware, when you could just code it bare metal and solve the problem with about 20 lines of code. Using no code limits your ability to think outside the box, because it puts you in a box. If you can't mix the colors on your color palette, it will drastically decrease your options to come up with something new. No code by design is not made for thinking outside the box. And in my opinion, the true power of software engineering is not being chained to a specific language or framework or anything. If you know how things work on a low level, you can always come up with some new unconventional approaches. I mean, if my microcontroller doesn't have enough memory, I can always think about ways how to produce minimal but highly optimized code, or use a minimal operating system, or even no operating system. But with no code, you're basically limited to the framework. I would really like to hear your opinion on this. Anyways, if you like the content, hit like and subscribe to support the channel, and see you in the next one. Tariq 10x.